Alrighty then, it is time to do another video. And it's back to the request videos because I've got a lot lately. I've really been slacking. So I'm going to start off with the most requested one of these what ifs because everyone wants me to do this one. So, let's do it. Let's talk about what would happen if Mario Zeppeli never died. For those who don't know Mario, he's Caesar's dad and William's fa- no, he's William's son and Caesar's dad. He did a waste of potential on him, kind of, but I think William and Caesar were also in there, so like it was the entire Zeppeli family. Yeah, Rocky did a terrible job writing the Zeppelis, but so far he's doing good with Gyro. But back to the main topic. Today we're talking about what would happen if Mario Zeppeli didn't die against the Pillarmen. Assuming he's able to escape his death, how does it change? Not only that, but how would it affect the rest of the franchise? And would it even affect the franchise? Or would it just affect part 2? Well, you're gonna have to wait and see. And by the way, before I do anything, expect a lot of OCs. Yeah, this is gonna be an OC-filled what if. So look forward to that one. But before I do the video, I want to thank Straightso, for requesting this what if. And not only him, but a lot of other people who wanted me to do Mario Zeppeli based videos because he has a big popular fan base on my channel. So thanks to him and plus with some other people on my channel, the video's here. So yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for the request, guys, and let's talk about the story. Alright, so we start back in part 2, or before part 2 in this case, where Mario Zeppeli originally dies. So in this alternative timeline, he still abandoned Caesar and the rest of his children because he had a bunch of kids. Don't worry, they're not one-night stand children, because JoJo has a history with this kind of stuff. And Mario just goes and looks for the Pillarmen. Caesar tries to hunt him down, that whole thing still happens. And by that point, Mario, during the scene where he's about to die, he's able to escape. Now, as for how, maybe he's too late to save Caesar, but I don't think people are here to watch what if Caesar died instead of Mario. Instead, we're talking about what if Mario didn't die, and I am assuming Caesar's living this scenario too. So, in this scenario, Mario just simply tackles Caesar down alongside with him. Instead of just straight up pushing him, he straight up just does a football tackle, a football spear tackle, you know, like Roman Reigns and all that, and he just avoids the Pillarmen's attack. It probably would have been that easily, if that, or maybe he's able to just notice the attack a lot easier and is able to use his Hamon just to destroy the vines or something. He's just able to somehow cheat that death. After that, Caesar and Mario talk. Caesar's probably a little angry, but once Mario figures out that's his son and how much he screwed up as a parent, he's going to apologize. So around that time, Mario and Caesar are definitely going to feel guilty for a lot of stuff they did, and would eventually find out about the rest of their family. Let's be honest, Caesar's siblings are probably not going to be at a best place financially, and if anything, they're going to be at a far worse. I assume with how the family was run over, because I had them help, because my fans actually helped me with the lineup, it's apparently 2 twin brothers who are the next kids after Caesar. Caesar was the oldest. Then 2 twin brothers. Then there's 2 girls, with one being a little older than the other. So I would assume the twin boys are probably older, or around the age of Joseph, or the girl. I would assume they're probably around Joseph's age. The girl's probably in her early teens by the point we would get to the canonical events. But they are not. But I have the feeling the sister, the oldest one of the girls, would accept. The brothers probably aren't going to accept, and if anything, they'll be more angry. I think the youngest sister would also not accept Mario very instantly. I think most of the siblings would just hate Caesar and Mario off the bat. I think the oldest sister would probably accept him the most, in my honest opinion. So I feel like Mario would try to make it up by training them Hamon and would tell them about everything, but I think they would just only do it reluctantly because, you know what? Why not? It's just they would probably realize that the Pillarman's probably just a bigger threat than their dad. And after that, they'd probably just be like, yeah, we're not talking to you again after this. And then Mario's probably like, understand. Realistically, it's probably how it goes. But battle tendency, like the earlier half, Speedwagon, Straightso becomes a vampire, Joseph still kills Straightso, Speedwagon gets captured by Nazis, Joseph has to fight Santana, Stroheim dies, and then we all get to that whole stuff. Until we get to Rome, where we finally meet the Zeppelis. In my opinion, I feel like by this point, I feel like during the introduction scene at the restaurant, Speedwagon would go and meet up with Mario, while Stroheim, but Mario leaves his kids behind to basically check on Joseph. They are probably told about Joseph in advance, and they're gonna see Joseph's personality. As for how the siblings could act, they'd probably just do some stuff. I could honestly just see Joseph trying to hit on the oldest Zeppeli sister, debatably, assuming they're around of age. I definitely think we could get some comedic moments where Joseph's trying to impress her or woo her. I don't know how he's going to feel about the brothers and the youngest sister. Joseph's probably trying to pull pranks on those kind of people, but their hormone just finds a way to counter them. Joseph just being typical goofy Joseph. So I feel like they would be told about the whole Joestar thing and about the prophecy. And it's gonna be disappointing when they feel like this whole time, when they've been hearing all these stories about Jonathan, because Mario probably knows about Jonathan, because I would assume he must have been told stories about him, or heard about him at some point. He probably has heard all these stories about Jonathan. So it's likely once Caesar and his siblings are told about him, and they basically find out that Jonathan's grandson is nothing more but just a funny prankster who's a pervert. I generally think they're going to question what their dad was thinking. And plus, seeing how Caesar was pretty cruel to Joseph for the most part, I generally believe he would probably still be cruel. And the siblings would probably be cruel, but especially towards Mario because he should have done his research. But I think Mario would actually side with Joseph on this one because Speedwagon would probably just say like, "Bro, let it easy on him. He's basically I wanted to protect him from all this," and then Mario probably just kind of understands and I feel like Speedwagon would have just left a lot earlier, so he just doesn't stay around long enough for the Pillarman encounter. But however, this would actually be, instead of them going to fight the Pillarman ASAP, instead, I think this would be a little training montage. Yes, I think we would get some kind of small training arc out of this. So I think, like, Joseph would probably be brought to, like, the Zeppeli household, probably some kind of small little modest household, unlike the rich Joseph having to grow up with a rich house. He'd probably not be used to having to live a more small-based life. And to be fair, we would get some moments of Joseph just training on Hamon and just being Joseph. I could definitely see him getting along with the twin brothers. I could definitely see them being like, "Oh, you want to prank our dad too? Luckily, we'll help you." Kind of like that, to get back at him. I think the youngest sister probably wouldn't care much about him, but would just find him funny. The other sister would just probably find him annoying and maybe even creepy, assuming Joseph tries to hit on her. And I think Joseph and Caesar's rivalry would be more intense since Caesar would be stronger. So I think that Joseph would actually kind of strive to want to surpass Caesar rather than be an equal, since Caesar would be even stronger than Joseph in this timeline. So if they do end up fighting, instead of it ending with a tie or a mostly Joseph win, it ends with Caesar probably winning, but Joseph probably pulling off a "your next line," distracting Caesar, and then just landing a hit. I generally think that's like how it would probably go, but Caesar would probably just be stronger. Joseph would also gain a little bit more strength in this, and they still meet Mark, and they still go and fight the Pillarmen, which could, in theory, actually help them in the long run. I mean, with more characters around, with more kind of hormone power, etc., I actually do think that they should be able to take out AC/DC at least. Not while moving cars, but at least AC/DC. And that maybe changes the story, assuming you actually go a route like that. So maybe we go that route. I personally don't think we will, but if you want me to, I could address an alternative take where he does go that route. I don't know. But assuming AC/DC does escape alive, because it's possible he may end up dying, the whole thing with Joseph can go the same. He gets separated from the cast. The little wedding happens. Joseph hates marriage because, it's Joseph. And that whole thing just happens with them meeting Lisa, like in canon. Now, the filler pillar arc probably happens, but I assume Caesar's brothers probably get thrown into the mix. Caesar's sisters maybe, but I don't really get the feeling that they would end up fighting in the story. If anything, they'd probably just be chilling with Susie Q or something. I would feel like Mario would probably kind of tell Lisa that this is a little too harsh, but Lisa would probably be like, this builds character, shut up. And then Mario would just be like, sighs and just does his own thing while doing his own training. I think with all this new training, they're going to be a lot stronger than they were in the canon. So, as for the flow of the story, by that point, Loggins would probably still die if AC/DC is around. Since I did state that in the long term, AC/DC's death could affect stuff, and this is what I mean by long term. If AC/DC's already gone, Loggins actually lives. Or most likely lives, unless one of the other Pillarmen take him out. I don't know. But, assuming that AC/DC is still able to escape, along with the other Pillarmen, chances are that Loggins still dies. After that point, Joseph just probably still kills him. Everything goes the same, with just stronger versions of the characters, I assume. After that point, we probably get to the battle in Switzerland, where Stroheim comes back and reveals that he was a robot, like in canon. Everything like that goes the same, until the hotel battle, where Caesar would actually not want to run in, because in this timeline, he wouldn't be as hot-headed. But there'd be a different change. Since Caesar is not hot-headed, his brothers would probably be. I mean, when you really think about it, it would fit more in the story. Caesar's sisters aren't really going to be fighters and would rather just be healing or just doing their own thing, and they're just there to kind of give a little heads up on hormone training, etc., and just chill with Susie Q. So it's likely just Caesar, his brothers, and Joseph. In theory, it's likely that they would do it, and not only that, but would also be affected worse than Caesar was by this. Same with Mario. Because remember, even though they're still alive and they are starting to care more about them, they both still abandoned them and basically forced them to take care of a family all by themselves. The sister also, they probably remind the sister that they all had to take care of the family. The sister's like, come on, like, it's stupid to just run in there. They're like, who cares? If anything, this will prove to the old man of our worth or something. I think they would only do it not because, oh, we want to avenge them. Oh, no. They're just doing it out of spite now. So at this point, they're just like, hey, old man, look, we're gonna kill the Pillarmen, and this is gonna disrespect you. This is like a big middle finger to your face. That's probably their plan there, and that means they're just gonna go in, kind of just to spite Mario and Caesar for abandoning them. That's my take on it. In my opinion, Machina probably goes in, he still gets hurt, all that. And that leads to one of Caesar's brothers, or both of them actually dying. Potentially speaking, someone from the Zeppeli Caesar brothers, one of them someone's dying here, let's be honest. It's tragic, I know, but like, it's the most likely case scenario, since Caesar's a lot more mature. If anything, maybe his brothers aren't like idiots. Maybe they're more calm, rational, like how an older Caesar would be. So, in theory, maybe it's more like No one just goes in, they universally agree it's a stupid idea, and then everything just goes the same like in canon, and no one dies against Wamu. But I assume they're probably just gonna go in, so big F in the chat for Caesar's bros or one of them. I'd probably just kill off one of them, keep the other one alive, I guess. After that, everything else in the story mostly goes the same, albeit with Caesar just helping Joseph in the Wamu fight. So when Joseph fights Wamu, Caesar helped, and I think Caesar would kill him because, you know, his brother got killed, and the other one's probably bedridden. After that, I think Mario can help Joseph and Lisa, and could probably stall for time and get injured, which can earn the youngest sister's respect finally. So at that point, Mario finally can get all of his kids' respect, except for the brother who probably dies. Unless when his life is flashing before his eyes, he's just like, yeah, I took that guy for granted. Joseph still dies, and everything in Stardust Battle Tendency just goes the same. Albeit with more Zeppelis, and albeit with Caesar's brother dying in his place. So, yeah, part 2 as a whole just kinda happens the same. Now we get to Stardust Crusaders. Now, another change I want to bring up is that after part 2 and before 3, I think with more Zeppelis around, since Zeppelis worked in Italy, this was World War II, the Axis powers, Italy and Germany, that could actually mean Stroheim could actually live World War II and actually make it to the rest of the story. I'm going to go in the scenario and say he does, because I've never done a scenario where Stroheim lives. It actually seems like a fun scenario. And I do actually plan to do Stroheim surviving videos, so I may incorporate Stroheim as a survivor in my other stuff. So, if you want to, I'll do it. Just a heads up, okay? At that point, Stroheim would also have kids. Yep, new OCs, of course. Leave it to me, the OC king. Alright, Stroheim's son, he has a son named Dominic von Stroheim in 1966. And then he has a daughter named Nico von Stroheim in 1968. Yes, I made OCs again. You hate me, don't you? Yeah, Julius and Rose, they're also still here. You don't need to worry. Caesar, Stroheim, their family's also just going to help. Mario would continue his hormone training, I assume, and would actually be here. Lisa probably does, and she could actually join the Crusaders. So she actually is a stand, and if she has a stand, she could actually be good in the story. But then again, it's hard to say if she ever would have awakened a stand. Let's go with the round and say she does. If she doesn't, she's just most likely dead weight and just going to be killed by one of the enemies very quickly. So they still meet Jotaro, like in canon, and basically the story should more or less go the same, albeit with just more Crusaders as a whole, just to make the part faster. As for Caesar's other siblings, personally, I don't really think they would be here. Like, maybe the brother's probably just chilling, doing his own thing. I could probably just see one of the sisters just moving to Japan and just probably having a family of her own. Whether or not this could lead to more Zeppelis being in part 3 and 4, probably not. It'd be cool, but like, nah, I don't know. By that point, I just think those characters just do their own thing. They're probably not really involved in Stardust Crusaders, but they'll probably be keeping an eye on Holly, and they'll be using Zeppeli Inc., which, if you've heard some of my videos, you may know who they are. I really don't go into much detail, I'm sorry. Caesar would probably create that just to be business rivals with Joseph, and be Italy's version of the Speedwagon Foundation. After that point, with more characters, the part's just gonna go a little bit easier. At that point, I feel like if I'm giving them the stand, like Nico and Julius, not Nico and Julius, but Nico and Dominic, I would have Dominic have a sound manipulation stand, because that would be kind of cool to see. And I would see Nico having a healing stand that uses long-range powers. Since we don't really have many long-range fighters in Stardust Crusaders, and it'd be cool to have a healer on the group. And by that point, I just don't think much would really change, except a lot of fights would be there, and I think there'd be more minions in this timeline. Since Dio would see more Crusaders around, he would probably start sending more people to go against the Stardust Crusaders. So by that logic, Dio's just going to keep throwing enemies out at them. And not only that, but I also think Joseph continues his hormone training, so he's going to look young. Honestly speaking, the Crusaders are just a lot better in this timeline, because you have 4 hormone users, 5 because Machina may actually get involved, because that could happen. You have a cyborg on the team, and you have a bunch of stand users. And not only that, but also those 5 hormone users and that cyborg. Not only that, but 2 other hormone users, because Rose and Julius know it. So they also have stands. So that's just gonna make things even better for the Stardust Crusaders. So they probably get their own enemy battles. They probably do some enemy fights here and there. That kind of stuff. It'd probably be new enemies. So I think that could lead to each other Crusader getting some fights. Not only that, but it would also be cool if Abdul maybe got a solo fight out of it. Same with Kakyoin, or at least one more solo fight for him. They did my boy dirty. After that point, we get to the ending of the story. Not only that, but I think Cold Horse may actually also join the Crusaders. Maybe even Nodal. I would actually like to see those two a part of the Crusaders. Very unlikely they would. I would personally like to add them in. Just, I kind of wish they did make it long enough. I liked those characters. In my opinion, as for how the part's gonna go, get to the entire ending, obviously. I'm not gonna go through the entire story. If you want me to, I can tell you how the story goes in the comments. And we just go to Mario versus, we go to the younger Darby stuff, which I think mostly goes the same, but I would probably have Dominic, Nico, Julius, and Rose also be taken with Jotaro, Kakyoin, and Joseph. And I'd probably just have Nodal get taken too, so. Because I really can't see him being useful against Vanilla Ice, he'd probably just be dead weight, in fact. So, those characters are there. Everyone else are with Abdul, Polnareff, and Iggy. At that point, I would probably see Machina or Whole Horse potentially doing it. Assuming Whole Horse just doesn't spam shoot younger Darby like my Whole Horse Crusader what if. Let's not go that route. Let's say that they don't do it and younger Darby just takes them. Machina will probably just die instead, and I could see Whole Horse actually getting very injured saving Abdul, or dying saving Abdul. It's hard to say exactly. I think he may just die in the Vanilla Ice fight, in my opinion. But if he's able to live past it, like Machina's able to save him, hard to say. Iggy would also live because of the extra help, so good on Ig for that. After that, nothing much would really change, except the ending, where we get to finally meet Dio, like in canon. After that point, we get a similar ending, but I feel like the split up would be a lot more different. So Polnareff still charges off like in canon, with Abdul probably trying to calm him down and going with him. I think Whole Horse would probably just go with him as well, and I feel like Jotaro and Julius and Dominic would probably go with him as well. Kakyoin, Rose, Iggy, and Nico and Abdul, those characters could probably go together, assuming Abdul just doesn't go with Polnareff's team. And then I feel like the old Battle Tendency cast get a chance to relive their glory days and fight Dio. In my opinion, I feel like the Battle Tendency cast will fight Dio, because I feel like it makes more sense, because I don't really think Kakyoin will die in this timeline, and it's not going to be because I'm biased. I just don't see him dying with all the new manpower on the team. I just feel like he's the least he doesn't have a good chance of dying in this timeline with more characters around. And in my opinion, I think it would be Mario doing it. And if you're wondering what Mario's stand is, I got it from the video game. Alright, so brace me, hear it out. Mario can eat flowers and can use said elemental power from flowers. I'm a genius. I know I'm a genius. I know, or I'm an idiot. I'm a brain dead idiot, or I'm a super smart genius. You make your mind up. But either way, that's my opinion on Mario Stand. It is such a funny idea. It connects to the meta humor so well. So just have Mario set up some kind of trap with some kind of powers, like just whatever Mario's powers were back in the day. He had a decent range of powers, like maybe give him some kind of mushroom trap or some kind of fireball trap, and then he uses the last of his power to shoot out a fireball to reveal the world's power. Mario dies right there from being a donut. After that, Caesar would try to fight him off. He gets injured, because of course he does. Lisa would try to heal him, but would probably get injured. And then Stroheim and Joseph will try to fight him off together, and Joseph gets killed, like in canon. Everything else goes mostly the same. I think Whole Horse can get a spot where he saves Abdul, and that can be where Whole Horse and Abdul finally earn each other's respect. And maybe Whole Horse can just die, and that can give Abdul some development. Either way, it could lead to Whole Horse either almost dying or dying to save Abdul. So that can lead to Whole Horse getting his character development finally. And Abdul would probably just lose his arms to Dio, but would survive the attack because Nico is able to heal him in time. In my opinion, I think more Crusaders would be around to witness the death of Dio. That's the big change to come out of it. More characters are around to watch Dio actually get exploded by Jotaro. So, in other words, that's probably how it goes. Maybe you can fit the other characters in some kind of role. Depends on how you would write the story at that point, but yeah. That would probably just be what I think would happen. But I think Stroheim would probably just die in the final fight too against Dio. That's another thing, I just don't see him surviving. I think he would just get crushed to death. Like Dio just grabs a giant oil tanker like he did in the OVA. Stroheim, it explodes and just takes Stroheim out. Nothing is left of him and they can't just rebuild him. So, yeah. And I would assume Dominic and Nico have some kind of German science style intelligence because they'd probably know how to use German science. So that kind of happens, and they're probably just going to be sad that their dad's dead. Side note, I know it's weird that Stroheim has a son and a daughter despite being in his 60s, but when you remember that Dio's over 100 and Joseph was 63 when he had kids, it's not weird when you think about it that way. But Jotaro, Joseph, Polnareff, Kakyoin, Iggy, Abdul, Whole Horse, Nodal, potentially, Lisa, Caesar, and Julius Rose, Dominic, and Nico. Those characters can live. Maybe just kill off Nodal as well. I don't really think much. I would kill. Okay, maybe kill off another one, like someone who I don't think would affect the plot much. In my opinion, I feel like the one to affect the plot the least would probably be Nodal, so I'll probably just kill him off against Dio, so yeah, I'll just kill Nodal off in the story. Probably have him die to Dio. I don't know. Maybe he can die revealing the world's power and Mario can die different. I don't know. I don't know how to write it around. I just think Nodal and Whole Horse would just join the Crusader in this timeline. Because I think more help around could just save those characters. So, yeah. Now it's time to talk about Diamond is Unbreakable. So, in my opinion, I really don't see the part changing extremely a lot. Minus from additional Crusaders, obviously. As for which Crusaders I would include, I'd probably put Whole Horse in the part, and I'd probably just have him come with the Speedwagon Foundation. Abdul would probably just replace the random Speedwagon agent during the Akira arc. Kakyoin goes with Jotaro, and I think Rose and Nico would just show up after Joseph arrives, which I think Lisa would just show up too. Caesar's sister's probably going to show up too since she lives here. Maybe she has a grandchild around Josuke's age that could be here, like a grandson or a granddaughter. I don't think she would. I personally don't think there would be a Zeppeli in this part. I don't know. I just don't think it'd be cool to have a Zeppeli in Mario. If anything, I would say that Zeppeli role for part 5, and you'll see in a minute for the next OC. No OCs in DIU, though. But for the most part, I don't really see how Diamonds Unbreakable would really change, except for some bigger fights. I still think that a lot of the story would relatively just be more or less similar to its canon counterpart. The only real change here is that I think that Rosanna and Nico would probably just leave after Shingeki gets killed. Or probably just Rosanna, I don't know about Nico. Kakyoin may want to protect his wife. And by that point, I just think you're gonna have to just do the whole thing like in canon. I feel like with just more characters being around, they could maybe catch Kira earlier. Probably not. Joseph continuing his Hanmon training means he gets to do more in this part, so that's actually a really good thing for him. We just get to see more characters kind of and get involved in the part. I'd like to see the slice of life adventures just go to other characters. Heck, for all we know, maybe you can have Kakyoin and Rose just live in Mario. Part 4 Tintme would actually be really cool. But, minus from that, I don't really think much would change. Of course, you have Rose and Rose coming back. Julius is not really here. Dominic won't be here. Caesar won't be here. And and same with Iggy. Those characters aren't there at the moment. And just the other kind of Crusaders, they're here. They're celebrating their life in Morio. Nothing much would really change. And the part would more or less just be mostly similar to how it was in the canon. So that would kind of just be part 4, except a lot of fights would probably do change though, because, you got more Crusaders. They're probably going to get some screen time in this part, obviously. Maybe you can add an extra villain or two just to give the other Crusaders their own moments to shine, and maybe just get some fights. But yeah, that would probably just be what changes in Diamond is Unbreakable. Now let's get to Golden Wind, which would actually change. So Golden Wind's real changes here would probably just be the fact that Avdol would just go to Italy with Koichi, I think. And I would include another Zeppeli. And my name for him would be Frito. What a name. I had to look up some pastas and Frito just sound nice, and then later found out it was a chip name, so big oof for me. But as for how he's related, he will be Caesar's grandson's long-lost grandson. I mean, Caesar's brother's long-lost grandson. He's not Julius's long-lost grandson. God, no. He'll be Caesar's brother's long-lost grandson who got stolen as a baby, who's been living on the streets and is mostly very street smart. As for a stand, I would call it Living Color, reference to the rock band from the late 80s, because I'm a big fan of their stuff, even though they made his theme. But minus from that, he can play a decent role in the part. Avdol would stay around to help, and I think that Avdol and Frito would have a very interesting relationship, to say the least. I think he would also have a fun relationship with the likes of Narancia. Maybe Josuke and Okuyasu, or maybe even Rohan could get involved with the parts, assuming Avdol's able to somehow get them involved. That would be kind of fun, not gonna lie. Maybe Whole Horse gets involved too. I really don't see any of the other Crusaders get involved. But a big change in the final fight is that Jotaro could actually show up at the end of Golden Wind. Because I think Nico would get into a relationship with Julius after the part ends, which I think would be kind of cute. And have her maybe, who probably just lives in Germany instead of Italy, have her contact Jotaro, inform her that her husband's missing and that he's being held hostage in Italy. And I think Jotaro would just show up and actually try to save all of his best friends. Because, that's Jotaro for you. He'd probably do something like that. So he may actually show up in the final fight, or may just show up a little bit later, and we may just get a scene of Jotaro meeting Giorno for the first time in Part 5, which would be really fun to see. But as for the rest of Golden Wind, some fights would probably be speed up a little bit, because, you got Avdol around, his Fire Chicken. I think he can help out against Pesky and Prosciutto. Frito can probably get his own fights here and there. I don't really see him. I see him isolating himself from the group mostly. I think it'd be fun if him and Avdol had a fight together, because I think they would have a unique dynamic. And I think Caesar's brother would actually show up here. Also, on a side note, I think Caesar's sister, I forgot to bring this up, but I think she would die in Diamond is Unbreakable. I forgot to bring that up. But I think she would just die to Kira during Bite the Dust. But, yeah. This is so, it would probably just make the Zeppeli thing more depressing. So, Caesar and his brother, they're around for Part 5. And in my opinion, Abakio probably still dies. I think Fugo may actually come around, maybe. I don't know. Probably not. Abakio probably still dies, though. The rest of the story just goes the same. And Koichi and Frito would switch bodies, probably. That, or maybe if there's more characters around, like Josuke, then Okuyasu, Rohan. Fugo probably has to go then, so he could switch bodies with one of those characters. Assuming that you want to add all those characters there. I don't really know if I would do that. Jotaro being around probably just switches bodies with Julius, Dominic, and Polnar, if one of those four can just switch bodies. Iggy should switch bodies with a cat to kind of get some jokes on Iggy having to live his life as a cat, similar to how Trish and Mista, with Mista switching bodies with a teenage girl, and Trish switching bodies with a man who doesn't clean himself. So it'd be funny to have this kind of dog switch bodies with a cat and vice versa. It'd be kind of some nice little comedy of Iggy having to do cat-like things and just freaking out the whole time, being confused. Minus from that, I really don't see much changing. I think Iggy would just die in the place of Narancia, in my opinion. Maybe it could be Caesar who dies instead. I don't know. It could go really either way. I'll honestly leave that one up to you. But Caesar's brother would actually die in this part as a sacrifice to save his grandson Frito from passing away. Just as so he can be like, I finally got to meet you, and I'm glad that I got to die saving you or something. At the end, maybe Jotaro obtains Requiem. Personally, I think it should be Giorno's ending at the end. I think that at the end we should probably get some kind of moment like Frito just kind of getting to see his grandfather die in front of him, but he's kind of like got that piece to finally get to meet him at the end. At that point, I don't really know what else could kind of change, except that he just dies in the story, so it's kind of sad there for him. In my opinion, I don't really know what else would kind of change. It honestly just depends on how the story is honestly kind of told at that point. I think that Mista, Giorno, Trish, they were fated to live, so they're obviously going to live. You can make the argument Narancia still dies because he was fated to, but the way I see it, in the world of JoJo, everyone's fate has kind of always been predetermined, so in a what-if scenario, Narancia's fate could actually be prevented. If the right moves are played ahead, Narancia, in theory, could survive. But that's if they play their cards right. In my opinion, I think the same logic could apply to Bruno, but I feel like there's really no way to save him. He's probably going to that castle and dying. Seeing how he didn't want no one to go in with him, so he's still gonna die. So, Abaki and Bruno, they're still dying. Caesar's brother is gonna die. Caesar may end up dying. Iggy may end up dying. That's kind of it. I think Abdul would just be stuck on the turtle. He'd be possessing Coco Jumbo instead, in my opinion. And I think Frito would probably just make a joke about it. And I think they would have just bonded over the fact that Frito hates Abdul, and Abdul is trying to be a good role model, so now Frito finally can become a good human being, and Abdul's like, oh, look, you finally changed. And then Polnareff and him are like, Abdul's probably glad to see Polnareff as well. And it'd be just nice to see Abdul reunite with all his Crusader pals. So for the most part, I think Golden Wind would actually have more changes than Diamond is Unbreakable, albeit not super much. It'd just be more characters in the parts. That's like the big change of 4 and 5. They're like more characters in this timeline, so I actually kind of like it. And now it is the main event of the evening, Stone Ocean. The moment you've been waiting for. How does this part change? Well, first half, like, Jolene still gets arrested, framed for murder. Jotaro and Jolene, they still fight John Gallier and Bucci. In my opinion, I think that there'd be more Crusaders having kids. I think Dominic would have a daughter, and I think that Julius and Nico would have a daughter together. I also think they would have sons as well, but it's likely that their sons just wouldn't be in part 6. I would have Dominic's daughter already be in prison, and I would have her go by the name Sophia. And then Nico and Julius, they have a daughter as well. I would name them after a famous pair of... I don't know how to pronounce their name because it's foreign. They're German models. It's based on the part 6 naming scheme. I'll type their names down in the comments or descriptions. I don't know how to pronounce it because I'm not good with pronouncing foreign stuff, and I'm just like, I would fail miserably at it, so I'm not gonna take my risk and do that. But I also would have Polnareff have a son. I know it's like, oh, Polnareff would never... He could actually have kids. That's the thing. In this alternative timeline with more Crusaders around, I do believe he would have been more motivated to probably want to have kids. Seeing how Polnareff was that kind of character, he definitely would have had a family. I think he'd probably just have a son and a daughter, similar to Kakyoin. And I think his son would be John Perry Michael Polnareff. He'd be similar to his dad, but more of a coward, so kind of a fun interaction there. And I think he'd probably just grow up being friends with Giorno. Maybe Giorno can get involved because of that. Who knows? But for the most part, Josuke would probably get involved because Tenmei's a little brat. Okuyasu probably gets involved too, assuming he doesn't die in Golden Wind. But knowing his reckless luck, he might actually bite the dust in Golden Wind. Koichi and Rohan actually potentially show up. I doubt Rohan would, and if he does, he just probably dies. Koichi would show up though. At first I never thought he would show up post 5 because he wouldn't seem like the character who would go on too many parts, adventures and stuff. But I think he may actually, if he knows Jotaro's condition, so he would actually be willing to come. I think that Nico would probably come around the ending. Dominic, Whole Horse, Julius, and Polnareff, they're going to break into prison together around the middle half, in my opinion. Caesar would also get involved in the story as well. Same with Joseph, since both are continuing Hamo training. And I think Caesar's younger sister will. In my opinion, Caesar's younger sister would probably look more like she's in her mid-40s probably by now. And Joseph would look more like how he would in Stardust Crusaders. Same with Caesar. And Caesar would look more like how a late 60s version of Caesar would look like. And then Joseph would probably look more like a 40-year-old during part 3 and 4. And Caesar would look more like a 40-year-old during parts 3 and 5. So, yeah, they would probably look more like how they would in Stardust Crusaders during Stone Ocean. Well, in the case of Joseph. Caesar never got to be in Stardust Crusaders, unfortunately. Big F in the chat for him. But, in this timeline, he's actually in more parts, so that's good for him. Now, with more characters, this will definitely affect the actual flow of the story. In my opinion, Hermes probably just dies in Foo Fighters' place. That's probably how I would do it. Weather's death is unpreventable. I really don't see a way to prevent it because he got punched through the heart. And even if he didn't, and even if they're able to pull Weather out of there, you got to remember that everyone's still under control of Heavy Weather. So either way, and it's likely Pucci would never just take out the memory disk, the group would have no other choice but to kill Weather Report just to stop the Heavy Weather effects. Unless Weather, just takes his own life and, as a sacrifice, he just remembers all the good times with Jolene and, yeah, I can't torture you guys anymore, I'm sorry, and just donuts himself or something, I don't know. That's one way you can go with, because he could do it. He potentially could just go full-blown depressed mode and just take his own life as a way to, repent or something, I don't know. After that, I think the most of Stone Ocean just kind of goes the same. I think Raquel would actually get to turn good because Josuke wouldn't kill him like Hermes, and Hermes would just die earlier on in the story. I think FF maybe could live past the Punishment Ward, and if she can, I think she would just survive through the entire story unless she dies to Sea Moon. But I think Whole Horse and Caesar's younger sister would probably just die to Whole Horse to Sea Moon. It'd probably just be Caesar's younger sister instead. As for the rest of the part, I mean, with all the characters around there, it just honestly depends on stands, because I never really thought of the new OC Part 6 character stands. I just would actually add 3 extra OCs, 2 extra girls, and 1 extra boy. Just for fun, okay? I'll create some stands for them later. If you're interested, I can give you some stand ideas later. And after that, I would probably just have the part kind of end with, Joseph sacrificing himself. Okuyasu probably just takes Hermes' attack, but would survive because Foo Fighters can clog up his wounds. I think the same could probably just happen in the canon, with Jotaro taking the attack, but just surviving because Anasui would probably survive because Josuke can heal him. Whether or not Anasui could survive through the rest of the fight is hard to say, but I think he would personally. Even though I'm not a fan of Anasui, I just think he would probably just survive. Rohan probably dies if he's around, assuming he doesn't die in Golden Wind, that is. I think that it's hard to say exactly. I think Polnareff may just end up dying at the end too, as well. Jotaro, Kakyoin, Rose, Julius, Dominic, and Nico, they're all bound to live. Caesar maybe lives. He could potentially die. I feel like if Joseph's dying, Caesar's probably going to die, let's be honest. But then again, it's possible that you could just have Joseph die after Caesar. You could keep Caesar post 6, I guess. Also, Lisa, assuming she's alive post 4, I don't think maybe she's around for 6. If she is, she'd be pretty helpful, I guess. I don't know, it depends on her stand. But I think Joseph may just end up dying at part 6, in my opinion. Caesar maybe does too. It's hard to say. But, yeah, that's the what if. What a what if, wasn't it? Pretty big changes to the overall franchise. So, I added 6 new OCs to my little headcanon. You glad to see them? You know I am. Yeah. And if you have any name ideas for Caesar's siblings, tell me in the comments, because if I ever just want to explore more onto a scenario like this, like another scenario where Caesar's siblings play a role, I would like to create some kind of names for them. If you have any cool name ideas or like a naming scheme that would fit, like probably from like part 2 or something, I don't know, since they would be coming from part 2, then yeah, just tell me in the comments. I would I would definitely. I'm also gonna try to think of some stands for the new OCs. Frito, I could tell you his stand in the comments if you're interested. And really, that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. And a special thank you to Straight So for suggesting the what if. You didn't have to request it, but you did. So yeah, and not only that, but thanks to everyone who wants this scenario, because he wasn't the only one. A lot of my fans wanted a Mario scenario. I have a big fan base for Mario Zeppeli and Georgia Second, and I have a few Georgia Second videos already. So like the video, subscribe, all that, and yeah, I hope I did the video justice right so, and I see you guys next time. Bye.